So, should I pray?
Yes, you can pray.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. So I'm done.
Okay, Amen. So please, we would quickly go through the exam areas. Then we look at the marks allocation. Then we jump to lesson 1. Before, let me take you through the exam, the marks allocation for the exam. Now, in the early childhood pedagogy paper, you are expected to be tested on 8 topics or 8 areas. Now, as you can see from the screen, we have understanding the early childhood profession. That takes 12 marks. Then personalities that contributed to the early childhood practices. That takes 14 marks. Programs that informed the early childhood practices. That takes 5 marks. The national policies that relate to early childhood education, 11 marks. Bodies that regulate early childhood education, 9 marks. Ethical issues in early childhood, that takes 15 marks. Early childhood pedagogies, that takes 20 marks. Then assessment in the early childhood education too, that takes 14 marks. So you could see that the pedagogies are very essential, or the methods that are supposed to be used in teaching these younger ones is very essential. We need to know about it. Then also to know the contribution of people in shaping early childhood and understanding the nature and then the scope of early childhood education. Now, I need to draw attention to the fact that early childhood, I see it to be more difficult than the SHS and the primary pedagogy. The reason being that early childhood is formed of so many essentials, and you need to, we need not to overemphasize the essence of the people who played roles in that. But because there are so many contributors to curbing the early childhood concept, there is a need for us to know the people, the programs, and the things that have together, the policies that have all together shaped the concept of early childhood education. Hence, it is going to be more historical. It may have dates, it may have names of people. We need to be able to remember all these names of people, all the events that took place, and our memory of these things will help us to secure a pass in the exam. In the event we forget or we use Montessori for a different person, or we allocate, let's say, the pencil system to another group of people, then we are likely to miss out certain key points that would altogether help us in scoring 50 marks. So please, I would want to first sign this as a caution. So then, in the event we are going through the slides, we'll be well informed to be able to take note of the people who are going to be mentioned, the program that are going to be mentioned, and their contribution to early childhood education. Having said this, let's quickly move to the very first topic that you're going to be treating today. Now, in today's lesson, we're going to look at the early childhood profession. According to the exam outline, we are expected to be able to demonstrate understanding of the early childhood education, in that we may be tasked to describe the characteristics or the nature of early childhood education. So when we begin the lesson in full detail, we are going to look at some of the characteristics of early childhood education. This, I know you have treated that in college or in university. 2, we are expected to know the understanding or have an understanding of the relevance of early childhood education. We need to know the importance of early childhood education. So key areas under that is to know the importance of educating children early, and also certain principles that should guide teachers as they work with these young learners. The third objective is that we should be able to demonstrate our knowledge and understanding of the goals of early childhood education. So first, we need to know the characteristics of the nature. Two, we need to know the importance and how the principles that teachers must abide by when ensuring that they help or they facilitate learning for these young learners. And also, we should be able to identify the goals. What are the objectives of this entire early childhood education concept that is being applied? Now, four, we need to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the personal dimensions early childhood profession. So the syllabus here details so many things. So you realize that the early child has a lot of dimensions. It has one, the personal dimension. It has two, the educational dimension. That is point 5. So I'm repeating it from point 4. I'm saying that early childhood has lots of dimensions. The first of it is the personal dimension. That is point 4. Point 5, we have the educational dimension. Point 6, we have the professional dimension. Point 7, we have the public dimension. So although topic 1 is very broad, we are expected to have a comprehensive knowledge about early childhood education. In essence, we need to know the various dimensions, and all these 4 dimensions, we will try to see if we can fully exhaust that in today's lesson. Next would be, the next objective is to indicate knowledge and understanding of the historical and contemporary views of the child. So finally, to without do a comparative analysis of how a younger child was seen in the past and how a younger learner or a young learner is seen in today's world, and how these early childhood pedagogies have been structured to ensure smooth learning among these younger learners. So this is the content for today's lesson. It is so much, but I'm sure we may be able to tackle all of them. If we are not, in our next meeting, we will try to speed up the game and work on that. The final sub lesson in today's session would be that we are expected to demonstrate our knowledge and understanding of the good practices of early childhood direct stakeholders. So what are the practices that you realize that early childhood, the goals cannot be achieved if all stakeholders are not involved? Now, the stakeholders here are the educational, the curriculum developers and the planners, the parents, the teachers, the schools, the heads of schools, and all these people. Now, all these are stakeholders who are required to play essential role in helping to achieve the early childhood objectives. So, what are some of the good practices that these people must adopt, must apply for us to be able to achieve these objectives or these goals of early childhood education? So that was a quick summary of everything we are supposed to know and be able to do today. I'm hoping that with the few numbers we have on board, how many do we have now? Okay, it's just myself and you. That's fine. So we can come again.
No, I said still 2.
I thought others are joined. So then
my
let
friend
us
is
quickly.
saying she's still downloading the app.
Okay. All right. So let me just run you through quickly the notes. Can you see the screen very well? This is my old note, so I don't know whether the backdrop would help you. Can you see, please?
Yeah, I can see in a way. It's okay.
Okay, then let me tilt it so we can. Okay, so in today's lesson, we begin the early childhood profession. Now, we are saying that early childhood education refers to the education and care provided to children from birth through approximately 8 years of life. So, early childhood we are viewing this from children who are below 8 years. So right from daycare to crèche to kindergarten to lower primary. Averagely, we're going to find these people in this stretch. Often in the Ghanaian sector, we may compare them to, let's say, up to the lower primary, because that would be the limit. As they grow into upper primary, they are gradually maturing and graduating from the early childhood concepts. So that is early childhood education. Now, this stage is crucial for the child's overall development as it lays a foundation for their physical, emotional, social, and cognitive growth. We just by way of information. Now, the syllabus said we should know the characteristics or the nature of early childhood education. Now, so knowing the nature, the first thing is early childhood education must play based, or it is play based. In essence, children at that level easily love to explore their world, and they do so gaining knowledge by playing. So it may look as if they are not learning, but as they play, they learn through that. And therefore, it is advisable that instructors or tutors would fashion their lessons in a playful manner. And by so doing, learners are able to learn. So no wonder in early grade classes, sometimes a lion has a tail. Like before you realize, the teacher is teaching that in a very playful manner. However, he or she is trying to communicate a lot to the children as a way of helping them to know uh, the description of a lion. Do you appreciate that?
Yeah.
So, do you appreciate what I said?
Yes. Yes.
One nature we need to understand, or one characteristic of early child education is the one that is play-based, or it requires play-based learning. Two, early childhood education adopts a holistic development approach, or it requires holistic development approach. Now, bear in mind, we said earlier that early childhood lays the foundation for the child's emotional, physical, social, and cognitive growth. So, matters about that should you should bear in mind that is an all-round education you're giving to the child, not only their physical well-being, their emotional well-being, their cognitive well-being, their social life. So the teaching should be such that the learner at that level is even made to understand the essence of playing or being more social with his or her peers in the classroom. So it should be holistic. It should not focus on only building their minds. It should focus on getting them know certain basic things. That is also very essential. Number three, early childhood education is child-centered. Please, we should note this, and we all know this, that for you to be able to teach early childhood, then you must focus on the child. You cannot focus on yourself as a tutor and be able to teach effectively in the early grade. So you must plan your lesson towards each child. So no wonder, I remember there was a time we had an orientation for some early grade teachers, and I was very happy that tutors at that level were able to pay attention to each and every single student in a class. More especially, let's say on writing, there were about 3 teachers in a class, so they would distribute the students among themselves, sit by them, and trying to ensure that each child is able to write. So learning in early grade is child-centered. So this is a characteristic that we know of. For early childhood education revolves around a supportive and nurturing environment. So the teacher or the tutors who are there are expected to be able to nurture the students, support them at every stage. You don't just leave the students to go about things their own way. The moment you do that, either they will sleep or they would go and tell their parents that, say, hey, madam, your class, you need to support
they may
them,
even
pay
get
attention
hurt.
to them. Come again?
So they may even get hurt while they are
Yes.
playing.
So if you don't really support them, you miss out. So one characteristic is it requires a supportive environment. Also, at that early grade stage, that is where many of or almost every child learns language and then communication. So at that time, the learners they tend to cognitively pick language very fast, communication very faster. So language and communication must be very, very essential at that stage. Just so that is a point where they are really able to. It is no surprise. Learners in early grade can can speak English when they don't understand English. They can speak Chi
Yeah.
when they don't understand. They can speak any language because at that stage of their life, their minds are able to grasp language and communication fast. So that is one characteristic, sorry, of early grade. Now, also, their stage is characterized by early literacy and numeracy. So, how for them to be able to recognize numbers and a few introductory words like 2 letters, 3 letters, etc., are essential for them at their stage. We earlier mentioned that learning at that point should be child-centered. So when we say individualized learning, it falls in line with that as well. Said. Also, it's early childhood. One symbol is that aside our education system, we should see parents as stakeholders who together help us achieve our goal of educating our children. So we should encourage parental involvement in that as well. So that was the first aspect of the early child. So for now, we have a general understanding of what early childhood education is. Two, we have seen a few characteristics of the early childhood education. Please, any questions before we move on to the benefits or the relevance of early childhood education?
I think I'm okay.
No question? Okay, so
For me, I'm
Jacqueline,
okay.
you're welcome. Jacqueline, can you unmute yourself and talk? You're welcome. All right, so please, Sharifa, go ahead.
Yeah, I said I'm okay.
All right. Then let's move on to the next. That is relevance of educating children early. Now, before we proceed, from what we have just discussed, what do you think are the importance or the reasons why we must educate our children early?
Okay.
Yes.
Let's say for their socialization sake, as be able to relate well with the society,
Okay. So for
and
their
then to
socialization, their
have
social
them,
growth, that is fine.
yeah, and then their reading and
Okay, so now
writing.
let's
Listen,
so it also helps them
yeah,
to be able to learn reading and writing
yeah.
early. Now let's move straight into that. So relevance of educating children early. Now, early child education is at the pivotal stage of the child's life, and it lays the groundwork for the future of the child. So then it is essential for the following reasons. One, we need to educate children early. One, for brain development. Earlier, you mentioned that this is a stage where their brains start to develop very well. So they work on their memory and everything. So once we educate them early, they tend to reason up, or let me say, wise up at a very early age. Now, research has proven that uh, young, when we educate our children early, they tend becoming so smart at a very younger age. So now, no wonder we all say, and then cry about the like Omi and Penny Semo, they know things, they can handle the phones very well, so much than their parents. So a child can be in class one and can use the phone more than the father.
Yeah.
Because their brains work so fast at that stage. They take the phone, they know where YouTube is, they know where case videos are.
Mm.
And now, Mom Rebecca says, hey, phone no cry no, me found koto hoda. So we need to educate them early so that their brains can fully develop at an early stage. Early. Also, too, we need to educate them early because of the learning readiness. Now, early childhood prepares children for formal schooling by developing essential skills such as language, literacy, numeracy, and socialization. So at that stage, they become learning ready, like they are ready to pick up so many things that we will put forth on their table. So then, because they are ready, we should serve them with what they are ready for. So we need to educate them early on that. Also, when we educate, we need to educate them early so that it would ensure their social and emotional growth. Earlier, when I asked someone, one of you answered with that response. Also, when we educate them early, it ensures lifelong learning attitude is instilled in them. Now, the whole agenda of NTC is to ensure that there is lifelong learning, that teachers never cease to study or learn. And education itself is a lifelong journey. We don't end studying, we don't end learning. So, right from the scratch, right from the onset, we set this in their minds and they see the relevance of learning all the time because it was began with them at their very younger age. Also, we need to educate children early because it helps to close the achievement gap. Now, let me explain this further. Early education can play a crucial role in narrowing achievement gaps between children from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Now, research supports this that Ebibeka said Akrebi is from a rural area, so deprived. But by virtue of schooling, they end up now, someone who was from a very, very poor background is now able to level up with someone who is a very rich home because they write an exam pass, get to senior high school, they can all become very literate, and life now changes. So educating learners early helps to close the achievement gap. And we can see this the opposite side when areas where learners do not go to school. They when once they don't go to school early, if they grow to like 12 years, want them to start school, it becomes a challenge and they lose interest in school. Then the achievement gap is widened. So how is it? We need to educate them early because of the language development. I've explained this before, so I will not really spend time on it. Cognitive skills, so that they can acquire cognitive skills. We have said that this is the stage where their brains are developing so well. So if you do that, it helps to ensure their cognitive skills are highly enlightened. Also, educating them early ensures they have a very good behavior and discipline. So it is no wonder, no surprise that when these younger children in early grades, when they are taken to school, you could tell for yourself that you could see the difference between a child who has begun school and one who is still in the house and not schooling. They become more disciplined in behavior, etc., following rules. Because in the school, we will tell you class stand, sit, and all those. So they become disciplined. They know when you give them instructions, they tend to follow. there are many children who, before they went to school, the parents will say, "Akwedo, I stop no hygiene or you did the pan." No go school, almost they become dean. That is a proof of educating them early makes them become very disciplined and ensures very good behavior as well. Now, educating them early also helps with parental involvement and caregiving. So, early childhood involves parents and caregivers in their child's learning journey. It empowers parents to be actively involved in their child's journey. So, the child would come from home and then in a traditional Ghanaian setting, Madam, I'm homework. Or okay, Obaniman homework in. So gradually with that, you are getting the parents involved in their child's educational journey. And that is how essential it is with or important we have to uh, educate children early. Moving on to the principles of early childhood education. But before, are there any concerns, any additions, any questions before we proceed? So please, any questions or concerns before we move on to the next sub heading?
For me, I'm okay.
Okay, Jacqueline, how about you?
I'm fine, please.
All right, so we're moving on to the next. That is the principles of early childhood education. Now let's see. So now at this point, you realize that some of these principles are inherent in their characteristics and also the relevance. So you'll be seeing them, and then you would have to go more swiftly with them. One, one principle is that it's child-centered, or it adopts a child-centered approach. We have seen and explained this before. It's also a play-based learning. We have explained this as well. Then, uh, developmentally appropriate practices. Now, early child educators use developmentally appropriate practices that align with the age, abilities, interests of the children in their care. So we are saying that one principle that early childhood education is signified with it is that everything that you do, the practice of early childhood, it's in developmental stages. So if the child is 10 years, the way and manner you do, is 6 years. The manner you would go about with a child would not be the same if the child was 3 years, would not be the same if the child was 6 months and has been brought to your school as a daycare. So their training, their development is supposed to be in that sort of developmental stages. Please, are we okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Now, another principle is that in early childhood, there should be so much respect. This is a part where, in many conferences that we go, we try to throw so much light on. We realize that sometimes some teachers fail to uphold this principle. They can just insult learners anyhow, and it's a very bad practice for instructors just to insult these younger ones. Bear in mind, once you begin insulting them, you are not correcting them, you are showing them a very bad behavior. You are causing them not to be very disciplined, and they will pick your insults and they'll begin using it because they will even use it without understanding. Before you realize, you beat them one day and they'll tell you kwasia. So please let us uphold this principle. Also, one principle is active learning. In early childhood, the mind of the learner is such that if they are not actively engaged, before you realize, they will become dull, they will become dull, and they will sleep. I'm not saying that sleep is not important in their learning. However, if you do not involve them so well, you'd cause them to sleep. So we need to work on that. We have earlier mentioned individualized learning. So now I'm beginning to appreciate the fact that in many of these international and private schools, you will not go and see only one tutor in class. In any of the early grades, you not go and meet just one teacher. You would see quite two, minimum you see two, so that you can pay individualized attention to the needs of the learners. So that principle is well explored in Ghana. Also, collaborative learning. So we need to create that we feeling among the students. So they share tasks and do things together. And this is very common these days. In many of the early grades, you see the classroom setting is dynamic, it's changed. They sit in circles, in groups, just so this principle is much adhered to. Now, earlier we mentioned respect. These levels to we expect that we uphold the principle of inclusion and diversity. So teachers are expected or stakeholders are expected to not make some learners feel they are not part. They should all feel together. They should feel included in the environment. We talk about parental involvement, etc. Now, at this point, too, observation is a key principle in early childhood. So teachers need to be very observant, or teachers in this space are often very observant to the behaviors of every child, and that is a very key thing. Another principle that we can lose sight of is learning. These are a few of the principles in the early childhood. We have quite a lot of things to do, so let's move quickly. Now, what are some of the goals of early childhood education? What are the goals of early childhood education? Now, these are inherent in the relevance we made mention of earlier. So the goals includes their social and their emotional development, their cognitive or brain development, their thinking abilities, their language and communication skills, early literacy and numeracy, physical development, creativity and imagination, just in line with the cognitive development you have said. Then one goal or one goal also includes curiosity and a love for learning. At this stage, learners are very, very curious. Everything. They want to feel more. They want to know everything. They want to know inside of every matter. So respect for diversity, uh, teamwork and collaboration. So I've said that is the more reason why now we allow them to sit in groups. And because of their curiosity, it is required that we try to give them very simple problems for them to solve. And it will surprise you that they will be able to tackle all those things very effectively. So that is that phase of it. Now we move into the dimensions of early childhood education before we look at a few questions and then continue. Until then, are there any questions, any concerns before we move on to the dimensions of early childhood education?
No, please.
All right. So now, earlier we mentioned there are how many dimensions of early childhood education do you say we have?
Mm-hmm. Four.
Four. So therefore, let's list them. Personal. Mm-hmm.
Is it educational?
Personal, educational, professional, and then public. Okay. So now let's dive deeper into these four dimensions. So personal dimension. Now the personal dimension of early childhood profession refers to the essential qualities and attributes that educators and professionals working with young children should possess. So you are saying that personal dimension, these are the personal attitudes, the personal qualities that in this case, you, that Sharifa must possess, that Jacqueline must possess. So these are personal dimensions. So they tend to tackle subanya or say timidity as people who are working with these younger ones. So one is empathy, two, patience, three, flexibility. We should not be trying too rigid. Four, we should be very creative because the people we're handling, they are so creative, even at that young age. We should earlier, I mentioned respect. We should have a strong respect for these people. Also, we should have emotional intelligence. Sincerely, if you're a teacher in early grade, you need to be the wisest teacher in your school because for those who are teaching in senior high, in junior high, if the learners are going to misbehave, etc., it is so much different compared to you. Because in your case, if you do not apply so much emotional intelligence, a child would hate you forever. And this time, when they begin to hit you, dislike your class, you are affecting the child from developing, or you end up letting them learn so many bad things. Sometimes a child might be wrong. You need to punish the child. At the same time, too, you need to ensure that the child feels you love them so much. When you need a different case, but we know so one thing may be as so sometimes what has a watch name kakra, what's actually like obey the day, obey maybe any and a whole lot, but you'd have to find a way of like balancing all the attitudes with so much intelligence. Okay, pennyman kabeka so oh jawasem like any baby I and found, but because they are young, you can't just leave them as you'd have left someone who is in upper primary or who is in JHS or SHS. So emotional intelligence is very essential. We must also know how well to communicate with these people. Then we must always constantly and actively engage in reflective practice. So even as you teach them, you lead discussions, you do everything, you should be occasionally asking yourself in your own mind that what you are telling them, are they really understanding? So you break what you have said down in your own mind without communicating to anyone. You break it down in your own mind to see, so what I'm saying, are they going to get it? Because their age, their level, everything. Or sometimes too, you can do a post-reflective assessment. So after a day, after teaching, working within a day, you can just get home. Then you begin to ask yourself in your mind how you went about things. Did the students really appreciate it? Did they really understand? Did they get to get what you intend communicating to them? So all these are very essential. We need to take in that. Then we should uphold professionalism. For that, we all know about that. Then we should have passion for early childhood. I know many people who are tutors or trained in this domain have that passion. So I will not really spend so much time on it. So on the personal dimension, these are some of the qualities or the skills that teachers are expected to have once they have agreed they are going to the early grade system. Are we okay with that?
Yes, sir.
So now we move to the educational dimension. So educational dimension has got to do with the attributes that are crucial for providing effective and impactful learning. Then ɛno abɛn de gu akwan mu a ɛbɛboa ama ade no a wɔkɔkyerɛ no ayɛ impactful to the learners. So these things we've mentioned them previously. So child-centered approach should be there, play-based should be there, holistic development, ensure the overall growth of the child in almost all aspects, cultural and individual diversity. We need to understand that these people are coming from diverse backgrounds. They may not be the same in terms of finances, their cultural, their social upbringing, and everything. So then lessons must be planned to ensure it is inclusive. It does not leave anyone behind. Then responsive teaching. Responsive teaching. Tutors in this field must be very attentive and responsive to the needs of each child. So earlier we mentioned individualized learning, child-centered. So all of these things talk about that. Then also partnership with families. We've mentioned this before. Then come again.
And I'm relating it to parental involvement. That's the partnership with families.
Yes, please. So assessment and documentation. So we need to really, even although assessment is difficult in these levels, but I've said that a very better way of assessing them at this stage is one, through observation. And then so yeah, let me see, observation is one key way of assessing them. But in all these things, we need to document so we can have record of that. So and advocacy for early childhood education. As much as we are saying this on the educational side too, we need to increase the awareness that children at their very young age must be made to begin school on time. We are no longer in the days where we would have said, hold your ear for us to see, like, so pass your hand over your head. When it touches your ear, then you qualify to be in school. Those days are gone. So now, on the educational side, one way we can throw more light on this is to advocate for children being educated early. So these are a few of the educational dimensions that we need to take note of. Understand and bear in mind that with all these things we are saying, we have said that the things we are discussing will contribute to 12 out of 100 questions you're going to face in the exam. So please, let's take note of them very seriously, and it will help us at least get some marks that will support us get 50 marks in total. Now, on the professional dimension of early childhood refers to the specific qualities and characteristics that define a competent and effective early childhood profession. So here we are looking at the qualities that define a competent and effective early childhood education. Now, by so doing, we are trying to narrow it down to how do we ensure high quality education to these younger ones to ensure their expertise or their overall development. So one is knowledge and expertise. People who will be assigned to teach early grade, we should ensure they are experts. We should ensure they have knowledge.
Hello?
Educated to teach early grade, then he must show his knowledge and competency in that regard. Also, there should be that continuous learning, which we have talked about it time and over. Also, ethics and integrity. So professionals who are in this field must behave morally right. They must be fair. They must be unbiased towards these learners. Communication, we've mentioned it already. Cultural competence. So once you are a facilitator or you're a tutor and you know the diverse cultural backgrounds of your learners, you must be culturally competent, just so you don't behave in a manner that would be in any way of disregard to another culture or cultural group of your learners. Then observation by way of assessment or assessment by way of observation. Just a few minutes ago, I mentioned that is a very crucial thing in the educational dimension. So it also repeats in the professional dimension. Advocacy, as we made mention on the educational dimension, also repeats itself in the professional dimension. Reflective practice, I made mention in the educational dimension. It is also very essential in the professional dimension. So please let us take note of this. Please, any questions for me before we proceed? Any questions?
No, sir. No, please.
All right. Our time is really not on our side. However, we need to also know in today's topic how early childhood education was viewed in the past, as against how early childhood is expected to be viewed in today's contemporary world. So let's see a vis-a-vis comparison of before and now. Now, in the past, those we would say are early grade learners were viewed as small adults or miniature adults. So in the past, children were often viewed as miniature adults who were expected to behave and act like adults from a young age. And now we are seeing that children are seen as unique individuals with their own needs, interests, and capabilities. So there is that difference. Now, in that, we're seeing that before, children were seen as childhood was seen as a brief transition phase leading to adulthood, and children were considered as individuals who needed to be molded and prepared for their future roles in society. Now, the view is that childhood is recognized as a critical and distinct period of life with its own importance. Early childhood education aims to support the whole child's development, physical, emotional, and social and cognitive. So before, and crabrim there, akra no bi anya bi da. Penny no bi anya bi da. Akra no bi bi da. So in your crabrim there, it's just a small time. No, you never bear penny more. So we don't really pay attention to that stage of life. But now, the view is that childhood is a very critical and a very different phase. So we should place so much importance to that childhood stage of the learner. Unlike before that, we said it was a small transition time, like what do you want to mean? We've all been like this before, we've all passed this stage before. So we end up trying to reduce that stage to a more or less like an irrelevant stage of life. But here now we are seeing that the view is supposed to change. Now, in the past, early childhood education was minimal, and formal schooling focused on academic instruction with little consideration for the child's developmental needs. And now we can all bear witness to the fact that now it has really changed. It has really changed. So now education, even in this time, is more child-centered. Child-centered. Now, before, in the past, children were perceived as having limited agency and were expected to conform to adult authority without questioning. So in the past, panika asma akrane hwan koka bi, like ekobusa one question. It was just do as you are told. But unfortunately, today the narrative is quite different. So in today's world, children are viewed as active participants in their learning and development. Early childhood education encourages them to express their thoughts, make choices, participate in decision making. So just with something about myself not long ago, I remember promising some students, I think class 2, that on their vacation day I'll come and visit them and I'll surprise them with drinks. Unfortunately, on the day of their vacation, I could not go. So I think on Friday, they vacated on Thursday. On Friday, I got a voice note from this lady. She used her mom's phone. Hey, say, you were a big liar. You say, you were a big liar. You told me you come for my vacation. You come and give me gifts. I was first. You did not come. I'm disappointed. You are a liar. Don't talk to me again. I said, Ew. Oof. Cafe is doing. We are so far from ground. And then someone can kill that. You're confident about catching me say you're a big liar. And you see, invariably to the child was true, like it's a truth. But before, You could not even express such opinion. But now the narrative is changed. So we need to make room for all of these things. Also, in the past, discipline in early childhood education was often based on strict rules and punishments so that there could be order and obedience. But today, there is rather what we call constructive discipline and then guidance. So you're expected to only guide them just so they become disciplined. You don't do things strict chinchina like this or that. Before, in the past, physical punishment was not uncommon. That means in the past, physical punishment was common, was used in controlling students' behavior or learners' behavior. But now, even caning is prohibited in schools. So you could tell that things have really changed from how it was before and now. Now, before, we were saying that no, you must make sure. So, okay, how was it even said? Say, I grunt in the doba, open is over school, and ubedi agro fee. In na wabedi agro, in your school, in your class, na wabedi agro. But now, the narrative is that even with what you are learning, the method you must use in teaching them must be play based. So that tells you the transition we have made in terms of this early childhood uh, education. Now, previously, early childhood often followed one size fits all approach. And see, if you are planning your lesson, you plan the lesson as you are coming to teach the class as a collective body. And you say, do you understand? Yes. No, that is all. But now, you need to plan your lesson to fit each and every student in your class. You must not leave any learner in your class unattended to. That is the development in today's contemporary world. So we are expected to have knowledge about this and be able to do our best to support the early childhood phenomenon. Now, the very last but one thing, then we draw conclusions is expectation of stakeholders. Now, stakeholders here include parents, the teachers, etc. So parents are expected to be involved, create a supportive learning limit the time they spend on. Also, teachers must also pay individual attention to learners, encourage play-based learning, offer emotional support, and also continually assess these learners. Now, school leaders, heads, etc., are expected to train their tutors in a manner that they become very proficient in handling such learners. Also, create conducive learning environments, ensure that parents and teachers are able to communicate about their students, and also they should set up ensure there are appropriate resources that would help in achieving this goal. Now, the community and general public must also do well to collaborate effectively so that learners in this stage can have access to quality education. So, this brings us to an end of the lesson. I want us to look at a few questions. I know our time is fast spent. Please pardon me for that, but we need to at least look at a few questions, then take one or two questions from you. If they are not any to, we will call it a day. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
I want questions that are around what we have just done. Now, number 8. Can someone read it for us?
Okay, I read. The early childhood education goal that emphasizes the need for parents and teachers to give children a balanced diet routinely is described as independence and sociability, meal and food management, social and interpersonal, then wellness and healthy living. And the answer is wellness and healthy
Okay.
living.
So earlier you made mention of the fact that we have what? Early childhood educational goals and purposes. I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah.
So this question is testing our knowledge on some of these goals of early childhood education. So as part of the holistic education, even what they would eat is also very essential. Let me try to still go through. I will send you privately questions, about 20 questions on the topic alone. There's a past question, so it has a lot of other areas in there. But I will send you about 20 questions for you to just do on your. Afterwards, I will provide you the answers.
Marcel, please, would you give us the notes?
Come again.
So, would you give us the notes?
Okay, I would see to it. I would see to it. Unfortunately, okay, well, it's not needed. Let's just continue. The
Okay.
notes, if you see, this is a part. This is an old note I used last year. I've made a lot of changes to it, the new one. So I'll send you the new one though. But unfortunate thing is, whenever the notes circulate, people end up sharing it into other platforms where people pay nothing and then they just edit my notes and put their names there. But all the same, I think it's normal.
Oh.
Okay, question 26. Which one of the following statements best describes the actions of professional early childhood education teachers who create and maintain good relationship with the community where they teach? So you realize the stakeholder thing we're talking of, which includes the community. I'm not going to really look at the answers, but I just want us to see how the various aspects of what we have just discussed play or happen in the questions. Now, 81 says, which of the following assessment tools is best for data collection on early childhood learners' behavior? Bear in mind, I said that in early childhood, observation is a key tool for assessment. So we should take note of it. 85 says, the key learning domain of the KG curriculum are attitude, values, knowledge, understanding. Okay, we come to this in a subsequent topic, so that's fine. So let me not rush us through the process. We've done 1 out of 8 topics. We need to finish 8 topics. By the next 3 weeks, we should be done with all the topics so that we can start solving. I have a lot of question banks, over 1,000 of them. We need to start solving so many of them. And the good news is that just 100 of them will drop in your exam. And it's a sure banker that all the 100 will come from the questions you may end up solving. So just do well to be present in almost all our meetings, and then we can take it up from there. So thank you very much. In the absence of any questions, I want to know so we can bring the class to a closure. However, I'm available if there are any questions, comments, concerns. Kindly draw my attention, let me know so we can solve them.
Okay. I think I'm okay.
I am okay, sir.
Please, any questions, additions? Silence means there's no question, right?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, Sharifa.
Yes, there's no question. You're okay.
All right, okay. So the class was recorded. I
You're
will send you the
okay.
recorded version. I'll send you the recorded version of the class maybe an hour after we have closed. So please do all to repeat the lesson just so you can get everything very well. So thank you so much for being present in today's lesson 1. And I hope that by the end of this program, you'd be very confident of yourself and you secure a very easy pass in the exam. A prayer from Jacqueline so we can end it.
Okay, sir.
Jacqueline, we are listening to your prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you today. We thank you for the grace and abundance you have given us. Father, as we have learned today, we pray for a retentive memory during our exams. We thank you for the life of our teacher. We thank you for the life of our colleagues joined here. We pray that, Father, you grant us the wisdom in heavenly places to pass the exams and learn in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right, so the class has ended. Thank you so
Amen.
much for being part